A Longhorn football postseason drought quenched in Houston, a change of perspective for Texas men's hoops, Karen Ashton and company eyeing a Big 12 championship, and a new man on top of Texas athletics.
We know when this place is rowing the boat in the same direction, there's nothing that can stop it.
All this and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening, and thanks for joining us on this Monday night. I'm Luke Hendry, and this is College Press Box. We're so glad to be back on the 40 Acres, the first show of the semester, and we got plenty to talk about. Now, Texas football completed its season in December at the Texas Bowl. Chance for Tom Herman to record the Longhorns' first winning season since 2013. So we'll take a step back and head to Houston for the highlights. Texas and Mizzou, and the Horns start off early. First quarter, Shane Buechele finds a wide-open Danny Young, the 22-yard score, 7-0 Texas. Later in the first, Sam Ehlinger in at QB, slings it to John Burt, 14-0 Horns. To the second quarter, we go. Mizzou down 14-7, and it gets worse. Forced fumble scooped by Anthony Wheeler, escapes some tackles, showing his athleticism on the 38-yard touchdown return, 21-7 Horns. Fourth quarter, little trickery. Reverse to Armani Foreman, block from Sam Ehlinger, touchdown Texas. Longhorns would go on to win the Texas Bowl 33-16. Now, our very own Steve Helwick was at NRG Stadium and reports on the unlikely hero who helped guide a program-changing win.
2014, 2015, and 2016. What do these three seasons all have in common? The Texas Longhorns finished with losing records. But this Longhorns team would make sure that 2017 would end in a better way, clinching their first winning season since 2013 and winning their first bowl game since 2012. The Texas Longhorns beat the Missouri Tigers 33-16 here in NRG Stadium in Houston.
There could have been a lot of here we go again on the sideline, and there wasn't. These guys were dialed in. They were focused. They knew that our best was good enough, that we didn't need any Herculean effort. We didn't need the other team to screw it up. That's a really good football team.
It's not too often you see a bowl MVP be a punter, but Michael Dixon was completely deserving tonight. The junior punter, who is going pro after this game, finished with 11 punts, and 10 of them finished inside the Mizzou 14-yard line, forcing Mizzou to have a long field on nearly all of their drives.
When they were leading me up to the stage, I was like, wait, why am I going on stage? And they said, you're the MVP, and I didn't believe it. And then said it again, didn't believe it. So it's still kind of sinking in now.
It's like you hit the light switch and everything's changed now. It's definitely up from here. I know I've said that before, but for real this time, this is a game changer. This was big time.
From the Texas Bowl, I'm Steve Helwick, TSTV Sports.
Is this truly the start of the so-called revolution? As I bring in our football analyst, Nick Kuhlholz. Tom Herman's first season, 7-6, first bowl win since 2013, and an identity on defense. All in all, though, was this season successful for the Texas Longhorns?
Luke, there's no doubt that this season was an improvement for the Horns. They showed astonishing growth in a magnitude of areas, specifically, as you alluded to, the defensive side of the ball. But I can't call this season from Texas a successful one. When you have a school like Texas that prides itself on winning, on success, on championships, and you finish 7-6, one game over 500, a very mediocre record, I can't call that successful. They had a lot of games that they had no business losing. They had multiple chances to win. You have USC up with 45 seconds left in the game. They can't hold on to win. Oklahoma, they take the lead late. They mount a furious comeback. Can't hold on in that. Sam Ehlinger's costly interception in overtime against Oklahoma State. And losing to Texas Tech and Maryland at home were humiliating losses for the Horns. Now, with that being said, I think if you're a Texas fan, there's certainly reason to be optimistic due to the improvement that the Longhorns showed on the gridiron this season. I think Tom Herman has his program heading in the right direction.
Now, you mentioned a lot of the ups and downs for this season. One of the things that has lingered here in Austin for so long is the quarterback controversy, saga, whatever you want to call it. Throughout this season, it was Sam Ehlinger, Shane Buechele, Gerard Hurd even saw some snaps. But at the end of the Texas Bowl, it seemed like Sam Ehlinger could be the guy for Texas. Is he the type of quarterback that they can build on, or are we going to see a quarterback competition this offseason just as we have since really Colt McCoy?
Well, you and I talked about this a lot throughout the season, and that there's no doubt Sam Ehlinger can be the guy for Texas to build around. He has the potential. He makes plays with his arm and his legs. He's a visible grinder, and he has clear passion for the game of football. But he made a lot of costly mistakes for the Horns, and I think that cost them in a lot of clutch situations. He was very inconsistent, I thought, throughout the season. I can't look at Ehlinger's performance from his first start against San Jose State to the final game against Missouri and say with 1,000% confidence, yes, this is the quarterback for Texas to lead them in the future. He's a great player, but I can't say that 100% just yet, and a big reason for that, there are two very talented freshman quarterbacks coming to Austin in this 2018 recruiting class. They're already on campus. Cameron Rising from Newcastle High School in Oklahoma accounted for 13,000 total yards and 147 touchdowns in his 4-year high school career, and Cam Rising from Newberry Park, California, two very good quarterbacks, as I mentioned, already on campus. They're early enrolled. They're coming for that starting nod, and I think it's going to be a very intense battle at the quarterback spot this offseason.
You mentioned it just to complicate things. Cameron Rising, a highly touted high school quarterback, now on the 40 acres, just to mix things up for Tom Herman. But his era at Texas is just now beginning as he prepares for his second year as the Longhorns head coach. We're going to take a quick break here on College Press Box. When we come back, we'll talk Shaka Smart, Andrew Jones, and get you all caught up in men's hoops. Stay tuned. Welcome back into College Press Box. Texas basketball showing signs of greatness while still revealing the vulnerability of a young program. The Horns took on the 8th-ranked Texas Tech Red Raiders last Tuesday. Shaka Smart and company looking to bounce back from a difficult loss to Oklahoma State. Now our crew caught up at the Drum in the second half. Shaka Smart, as I mentioned, looking for that bounce-back win. Kerwin Roach, first game back from the injury with the tray, 34-24 Horns. A few possessions later, Matt Coleman with some penetration lobs it to no other than Mo Bamba with the flush, 36-26. Texas would continue the work on offense. Pretty little left-hand land from Dylan Ostakowski. Tech and transition rejected by Mo Bamba. He would finish the game with 5. Later in the fourth, Matt Coleman looking to create some space. He'd find Febres with the tray. The freshman would just about seal it. Texas going on to win this one 67-58. For more on the Longhorns win, here is our very own Nick Kuhlholz.
Just 4 days after a disastrous second-half meltdown in Stillwater, where the Texas Longhorns blew a double-digit lead to the Oklahoma State Cowboys with just minutes to go, the Burnt Orange were in desperate need of a win to keep up with the jam-packed race in the Big 12 standings. But in order to do so, Texas would have to face the second-place team in the conference that was coming off one of the biggest wins in their program's history. Headed into Wednesday's Big 12 matchup at the Frank Irwin Center, the Texas Tech Red Raiders look to pick up their first win in Austin, Texas since 1996. And coming into the game as the 8th-ranked team in the nation, it sure looks like this could be the year the Red Raiders ended their dreaded 21-game losing streak. But Shaka Smart's team had other plans. In his first game back from injury, junior guard Kerwin Roach scored 20 points and grabbed 5 rebounds to help the Texas Longhorns pick up a much-needed victory in Big 12 play. Texas Tech head coach Chris Beard wasn't disappointed in his team's play, but rather impressed with the performance from Shaka Smart's squad.
I give Texas defense a lot of credit. Not only were they camped in the lane making us shoot shots, but they wouldn't foul us either. And we were trying to drive the ball. We sped the game up in the second half and played more of our pace, but then just ran out of gas at the end. And again, a lot of key 50-50 balls late in the game where Texas got them and give them credit. In basketball, victory favors the team that's more aggressive, and I thought they were more aggressive than us for most of the night.
The Longhorns have had consistency issues throughout the young season this far, but Coach Beard certainly believes in the potential that this Texas team has.
I'm saying the reason we didn't play well is you got to give Texas a lot of credit. That's a well-coached, good team with several future NBA players.
Texas is back in action at the Frank Irwin Center this Saturday at 1 o'clock for the Big 12 SEC Challenge as the Horns play host to the Ole Miss Rebels. From the Drum, Nick Kuhlholz, College Press Box.
Now that momentum from the impressive win over Tech at the Drum was short-lived. Texas falling to West Virginia on Saturday, 86-51. But the hearts of Longhorn faithful are with Andrew Jones. The sophomore guard was diagnosed with leukemia earlier this month and publicly announced by the program on January 10th. The emotions were evident following an inspired win over TCU later that day. As I welcome in our basketball analyst, Thomas Finch, what does the loss of the young guard, Andrew Jones, do for arguably a very young and inexperienced program, and the hearts obviously with him and his family?
Well, obviously you lose your top scorer. He was averaging 13.5 points a game. He's such a versatile player. He can shoot it from deep. He has the mid-range shot. He can drive it in and pass it around. So you lose that. You also lose depth. You look at, this is a team who's blown a lot of leads down the stretch. Look at the Oklahoma State game when you were not just without Jones, you were without Kerwin Roach. So down 2 guards, and there's just a struggle to penetrate and drive in, and the shooting accuracy goes down as the game goes on. And finally, emotionally. These are a bunch of young guys, and they want to win for Andrew, but you know that there's a lot of pressure there, and so that hurts you down the stretch.
I think the mentality for Shaka Smart's team changes completely from the wins and losses on the basketball court to something much, much larger. Certainly here at TSTV, our thoughts and prayers with Andrew Jones and his family during this time. And as you see on the screen now, donations can be made to support Jones and his family at the address there on the screen. Like I said, over $100,000 have already been raised for Jones and his family, a great cause in the community at the University of Texas surrounding him and his family. Now Texas sits at 12-7 on the season, 3-4 in Big 12 play. Tough losses, though, to some really good programs dating back to early in the season, the 5th and 6th game to Duke and Gonzaga. There's a lot of season left, but they're 12-7. Is this team showing the improvement needed to etch their name in the tournament come March?
Well, it's tough because it feels like every step we take forward, all the momentum we gain, we take a step back. You look at, you beat TCU, a big win at home in double overtime, then you go to Oklahoma State, blow a 12-point lead. You win a big game at home against Texas Tech, and then you go to West Virginia and get blown out. And so this is just a very inconsistent team, and it's hard to make a run in the tournament when you're inconsistent, even though we can really play with anybody on a game-to-game basis. One of the big struggles is the road or neutral site games. We were 0-3 against ranked teams in those games, 3-5 overall, and the tournament's all neutral site. Or if you're playing, the top teams, it's really a road game. And so you struggle with that, but there is a bright side, and that's the freshman development. You look at guys like Matt Coleman, him and Jace Fredbreast, some of the freshman guards. Coleman's done a good job of learning how to drive, learning how to dish the ball around to the bigs, kicking it out for the 3. And speaking of the bigs, the development of Mo Bamba and Jericho Sims has been impressive. We knew coming into the year their defensive presence they would bring, but Shaka Smart's done a good job in developing them offensively, creating a much better offensive presence with them.
One of the benefits of playing in a conference like the Big 12 is it's arguably the best basketball conference this season, and I don't think it would surprise critics to see a sub-500 conference record. Maybe Texas getting that bid come March for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, wins are important, though, and the Longhorns will look to bounce back tonight against Iowa State. It's time for another quick break on College Press Box, but coming up, we'll talk women's hoops and one of the newest additions to the state-of-the-art Texas athletic facilities. We'll be right back. Welcome back into College Press Box, joined now at the desk by Ross Lubinsky. A new year and a new Texas athletic facility. Ross, the complex just east of I-35 has officially opened.
That's right, Luke. This past weekend was the grand opening of the newest UT sports facility, the Texas Tennis Center. Located just behind Dish Falk Field, the Texas Tennis Center features 12 hard courts, men's and lockers room, a training room, a player's lounge, a stringing room, and a new strength and conditioning area for players. All these amenities make this one of the newest and nicest facilities on campus. Both teams opened the facility in dominant fashion, with the women sweeping both of their matchups this weekend and the men sweeping all 3 of theirs.
Herb Hand, a veteran offensive line coach who has helped coordinate numerous dynamic offenses in his 27 years of coaching, has officially been hired as co-offensive coordinator and offensive line coach at Texas. Hand spent the past 2 seasons as the offensive line coach at Auburn under Gus Malzahn. The newest member of Herman's staff will take over a transforming offensive line, losing senior Jake McMillan and former All-American Connor Williams. Hand officially began in January.
Over the break, the number 2 men's and number 5 women's swimming and diving teams hosted the Auburn Tigers, and both came out with a win. The men finished with a final score of 160, with Joseph Schooling taking first in the 100-meter butterfly, the event in which he won an Olympic gold medal in 2016. The women finished with a score of 175 and won 14 out of the 16 events. Next, we shift our focus to the women's basketball team, who had quite a week. They hosted the Yukon Huskies, the Goliath of women's basketball, but unfortunately fell short. Our own Katerina Biancardi was there to cover the game.
In front of a record-setting crowd, Texas gave a show. Holding the Yukon Huskies to the smallest margin of victory of their season so far, Texas head coach Karen Aston says the game came down to one thing.
And then free throws ultimately bit us.
While shooting less than 60% from the free throw line is unlike the Horns, Aston focuses on more than just the X's and O's.
And so it's not as much about did we win tonight or did we not win. We measured ourselves tonight against a really great opponent.
Tonight, Texas showed right out here on their home court that they can compete with a team like UConn all the way down to the wire. But what is more left to be achieved by this Texas team remains to be seen.
Now, going into practice every day, we can kind of use this as a example, and then when we're in those moments where we don't feel like, if people don't feel like practicing or we don't feel like going hard or something like that, we can use that and say, hey, look, I mean, are we going to be who we are, or are we going to kind of take a step back?
And who the Horns are even impresses UConn head coach Gino Auriemma.
It's a different Texas team that played us today. You know, they were in charge of the game for long stretches.
And who knows, Texas might just get revenge against the Huskies in a postseason rematch. But as for now, the Horns used the loss as motivation during conference play. Katerina Biancardi, College Press Box.
Special thanks to Katerina Biancardi for that report. Ross, Texas proved it's a program worth noting. Karen Aston talked about the identity of the team and using it to fuel the rest of the season. Most of the time, it's a statement win that people talk about when they think of great seasons. Could this have been, though, simply a statement performance?
It definitely was a statement performance. The Longhorns have played well for most of the year, but no test is bigger than playing UConn, a team that last season saw its 111-game winning streak snapped at the drum. A win would have been the cherry on top, but losing by 4 to a team that regularly dominates its competition is a great sign. There aren't many better ways that you can test yourself for the postseason than playing Goliath on your home court. This bodes well for the Longhorns as the NCAA tournament is not too far off on the horizon.
I think a compliment from Gino is something to take and use to fuel a season without a doubt. Texas did bounce back from the loss to UConn with a dominant win over Texas Tech, 90-39 on Saturday. The Longhorns are currently second in the Big 12 behind the 4th-ranked Baylor Bears, who they will face in Waco on Thursday. Ross, it's always a competitive conference matchup with a lot of implications on the line on Thursday.
You're exactly right, Luke. This matchup could determine who wins the Big 12 regular season title, which is extremely important for the Big 12 tournament that will follow. Both teams will be looking to take the reins for the conference, and the Bears, hosting the Longhorns, are currently undefeated in conference play at 7-0, and they are a perfect 10-0 at home. Texas is 6-1 with their lone loss against TCU, and they'll be trying to snap Baylor's 14-game winning streak. This, as always, has been a battle of the heavyweights, just as you mentioned, and should prove to be another great game between these two storied programs.
Always competitive. Texas versus Baylor. Implications, as Ross said, for the regular season conference championship. Tip 6 o'clock Central on Thursday in Waco. Ross, thanks as always for joining us. We'll be right back to College Press Box. There's a new man at the helm of Texas athletics, and we'll talk more. Stay tuned. For the final time tonight, we welcome you back into College Press Box. Let's take a look at what Longhorn sports are underway this week. On Thursday, women's basketball taking on Baylor, as Ross and I just discussed. You can catch that game on ESPN2. Friday, women's tennis versus Mississippi State, and men's and women's swimming at Arizona State. Saturday, men's basketball in the SEC Challenge against Ole Miss on ESPN2 as well. Men's tennis taking on Notre Dame, featuring the new facility here in Austin. Women's basketball will continue Big 12 play against Iowa State on LHN. Now for our final story of the night, and one that happened most of during the time off from the 40 acres, is one of the most important, and it is the future of Texas sports. After spending 8 years as the athletic director of the TCU Horned Frogs, Chris Del Conte has come to the 40 acres and is the new athletic director of the Texas Longhorns.
There's a new man at the helm for Texas athletics. His name is Chris Del Conte, and he's known as a winner.
My philosophy is simple. My job is to support coaches and student athletes in their endeavors to win championships, period. That is it.
Del Conte is the former AD at TCU, where in 8 years he guided the Horned Frogs from mid-major ambivalence to Big 12 championship contenders in several sports.
So why Texas? Why Texas and why now? Why did Darrell Royal leave Washington to come here? Think about that. DeLoss Dodds left K-State. Shaka left VCU. Why? Because this is the University of Texas. The standard of intercollegiate athletics starts here.
It's a massive hire for UT President Greg Fenves, who's seen Texas sports struggle mightily during his administration.
This was a good time to do a change. Chris Del Conte is a hot commodity, and I wanted to get him here to Texas before he had too many other alluring offers. He is a visionary, but also that's not enough. He can actually accomplish that vision. He can get things done, and that's what he's done at TCU.
Del Conte takes over the athletic director position from Mike Perrin, who was named the interim AD by Fenves in 2015. Perrin was here today to welcome Del Conte, who asked Perrin to advise him, especially in the first few months of his tenure.
It's kind of like when you graduate from high school or something, you know, I feel really good about what my wife and I have done here as a team for the last 2 years, but it is time to hand it off. So I'm totally at peace with it. Chris has asked me to remain available to him, which I'll be glad to do. You know, I've been hanging around here 52 years now, so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
In his first press conference on the 40 acres, Del Conte dodged most questions on specific athletic issues, including the inevitable, the desire to resurrect a yearly football game against Texas A&M.
I think we'll look at that. Again, I don't have any comment on that today, and I'm not just being, I don't know. For the next several months, it'll be look, listen, and learn. I don't have all the answers. I have an opinion. And the opinion is shared by 500,000 living alumni, 60,000 students, 500 athletes. We will all have that conversation and share those and look to what's right.
For Del Conte, the magnitude of the change he's just made became clear after a phone call from his former football coach.
I got a phone call from Gary Patterson this morning. I love you, but I hate you today, my man. I said, I love that. That's what it's all about, right?
However, there will still be plenty of things that stay the same.
It is still a 10-foot rim. It's still 100 yards. And you have 523 student athletes trying to win championships. And as long as you put them first and coaches first, everything else is immaterial.
Del Conte knows his legacy at Texas will be defined by one thing above all else: national championships. From the Centennial Room at DKR, I'm Eric Goodman, TSTV Sports.
Del Conte has certainly already received much praise across the state for his efforts here at Texas. That is all we're going to have for you tonight. And once again, thanks so much for joining us. Follow TSTV Sports on social media throughout the year for your latest Longhorn sports coverage. And join us right here every Monday night for College Press Box. College Crossfire with Mark Skoll Jr. airs Wednesdays at 9. From all of us here in studio and Master Control, special thanks to you for spending your Monday night with us. Until next time, I'm Luke Hendry. Good night.